It was Mother's Day. The sun was just beginning to rise over the quiet, tree-lined streets of Durbin Crossing, one of those immaculate planned communities in northeast Florida where families move to feel safe, where children ride bikes, where neighbors wave at each other, where the worst thing that could happen never does. That morning, a jogger moving through a wooded area near Saddlestone Drive stopped walking. There was something on the ground, about 140 feet from a small retention pond, half hidden in the undergrowth. He called 911. What investigators found when they arrived was so brutal, so savage, so completely without reason, that the judge who later sentenced the perpetrator said it was the most difficult and shocking case he had seen in 30 years of living and working in St. Johns County. She was 13 years old. Her name was Tristyn Bailey. And the person who killed her had been telling people for months exactly what he was going to do. They thought he was joking. Before we go into what happened, you need to know who Tristyn was. Because Tristyn Bailey was not a name in a headline. She was a person, a specific, irreplaceable, full-of-life person who deserved to grow up. She was born on January 18th, 2008, in St. Johns, Florida, the youngest of 5 children in the Bailey family. Her father Forrest and mother Stacy raised her in the close-knit community of Durbin Crossing, where Tristyn had known the same neighbors, the same streets, the same friends her whole short life. She was a cheerleader for Patriot Oaks Academy, her middle school. Not those who knew her described a girl who was energetic and enthusiastic about everything she touched. She lit up rooms. She cheered loudly. For her team, for her friends, for the people around her. She was the kind of girl who, when she left a room, you noticed she was gone. Her father Forrest stood in a courtroom 2 years after her death and said this about his daughter, and I want you to hear every word of it. Tristyn, I wanted to let you know we are so extremely proud of the person that you were in your time here. When you went out into the world, you gave it your very best. You should be proud of the friend that you were, the teammate that you were, and what you left behind. His voice broke. We will always be the Bailey 7. Aidan Fucci lived a few blocks away from Tristyn in the same neighbourhood. He was 14 years old and attended the same school, Patriot Oaks Academy. He was in 8th grade. He was, by most accounts, an unremarkable student, described by peers as average in maturity and social standing. But in the months before May 2021, Fucci had been saying something that the people around him couldn't take seriously. He wanted to kill someone. He said it to friends. He said it to his girlfriend. He said it more than once, in more than one conversation, over more than 1 month. He was specific. He wanted to know what it felt like. He said he planned to take someone into the woods. They thought he was joking. Nobody called a parent. Nobody called a teacher. Nobody called the police. He wasn't joking. Saturday, May 8th, 2021. Tristyn Bailey was last seen by her family just before midnight. She had been out with friends, normal, ordinary teenage socializing in a neighborhood where everyone knew each other, where the streets felt safe, where nothing bad ever happened. At 1:15 in the morning, a residential security camera picked up 2 figures walking together near the Durbin Crossing North Amenities Center, a boy and a girl, walking together through the quiet suburban dark. The boy was Aidan Fucci. The girl was Tristyn Bailey. 30 minutes later, at 1:45 a.m., another home camera captured them again, walking along Saddlebrook Drive, deeper into the neighborhood, moving toward the wooded area at the end of the street. At 3:27 a.m., that same camera captured something that would become the most important image in the entire investigation. One figure, running, moving fast, in the opposite direction from the woods. No, Fucci, carrying his shoes in his hand. Tristyn was not with him. Tristyn was never seen alive again. By Sunday morning, Mother's Day, Tristyn's family knew something was wrong. She hadn't come home. She wasn't answering her phone. They reported her missing. The search began. At just after 6 in the evening, the jogger found her body in the woods near Saddlestone Drive. 140 feet from a retention pond, partially hidden in the undergrowth. She had been stabbed 114 times. The medical examiner would later find a fragment of a broken knife tip embedded in her skull. While investigators were still processing the scene, while Tristyn's family was still being told the news that would destroy them, Aidan Fucci was sitting in the back of a police car. He had been brought in as a witness. Not a suspect, at that point. A witness. And while he sat in that police car, he picked up his phone and posted on Snapchat a photo of himself in the back of the police car, flashing a peace sign. The caption read, "Hey guys, has anybody seen Tristyn lately?" That image, that peace sign, that caption, that smirk, became the face of something the community of Durbin Crossing could not comprehend. A 14-year-old boy, sitting in a police car hours after killing his classmate, performing innocence for the internet. Investigators searched his house that same evening. In his room and in the bathroom sink, they found clothing that matched the surveillance footage from the night of the attack. The clothes tested positive for blood. A knife was recovered from the pond near where Tristyn's body was found. The tip of the blade was broken off. It matched the fragment found in her skull. The following day, May 10th, Aidan Fucci was arrested. What followed was a legal process that took nearly 2 years. Initially charged with second-degree murder, Fucci was quickly indicted by a grand jury on first-degree murder. The state argued the number of stab wounds, 114, demonstrated premeditation. This was not a sudden, uncontrolled act. This was deliberate. He would be tried as an adult. His mother, Crystal Smith, was charged separately for evidence tampering. Investigators discovered she had washed her son's bloody jeans after the murder. She knew what he had done, and she tried to hide it. The trial was scheduled, postponed, rescheduled. Fucci's attorneys pushed for delays. They sought to limit media access. They argued over the autopsy photos. Every motion was denied. Then, on the morning of February 6, 2023, the very morning jury selection was scheduled to begin. Aidan Fucci walked into that courtroom and did something nobody fully anticipated. He pleaded guilty. No trial, no jury, no cross-examination of Tristyn's family, just a guilty plea delivered 18 months after her death on the morning that would have been the first day of the rest of his accountability. The sentencing hearing lasted 2 days. What happened in that courtroom during those 2 days is something I want you to sit with. Tristyn's family came, every one of them. Her parents, her siblings, her cheerleading teammates, her teachers. More than 150 letters had been submitted to Judge Smith on Tristyn's behalf. He read every single one. Her sister Alexis stood at the front of that courtroom and placed 114 aqua-coloured stone hearts into a glass jar, one by one, each one representing a wound. The jar sat there throughout every testimony, a physical, undeniable, accumulating weight of what had been done to her little sister. When she finished, Alexis looked at the court and said, "Aidan Fucci didn't just take Tristyn's life that day, he took everything from us." Tristyn's mother Stacey stood before the judge and said this, and I want you to hear it as she meant it. Aidan Fucci made a heinous decision on May 9th, 2021, and took the very life that I brought into this world. Please do not for 1 second think that he could be rehabilitated at any point. He is beyond saving. The only person who spoke for Fucci was his grandmother. She stood in that courtroom, and she cried and she said, "Please don't take him out of our lives forever. I know there is some good in Aidan." Judge Smith acknowledged her courage, and then he sentenced Aidan Fucci to life in prison. Before he handed down the sentence, Judge Smith said something that has stayed with every person who covered this case. He said this crime had no motive, not greed, not revenge, not rejection, not passion, not anger. He said, and these are his exact words, that the murder was done for no other reason than to satisfy the defendant's internal desire to feel what it was like to kill someone. He wanted to know what it felt like. And a 13-year-old girl, a cheerleader, a daughter, a sister, a teammate, a friend, paid for that curiosity with her life. And Judge Smith called it the most difficult and shocking case he had seen in 30 years. He said Fucci's behaviour was so unusual compared to individuals his age that there was a poor prognosis for rehabilitation. Life in prison. Eligible for review in 25 years, as required by Florida law for juvenile offenders. In 2025, Florida's appellate court reviewed the sentence and affirmed it. The only correction made was a clerical error about a court fee. Aiden Fucci will spend the rest of his life in prison. He will be eligible for review when he is in his 40s. That day may come. But Tristyn Bailey will never be 40. She will never be 20. She will never be 15. She was 13. There is one more thing I need to tell you about this case. Something that speaks not just to what Fucci did, but to what we as communities must pay attention to. He told people. For months, he said he wanted to kill someone. He described how. He described where. He told his girlfriend. He told his friends. And the people who heard him, teenagers, young people who didn't know what to do with what they were hearing, convinced themselves it wasn't real, that he was being dramatic, that it was the kind of dark talk that means nothing. It meant everything. If you are ever in a situation where someone, anyone, tells you they want to hurt or kill another person, take it seriously. Tell an adult. Tell a teacher. Tell the police. You will not be overreacting. Tristyn Bailey's family will carry the weight of that morning for the rest of their lives. Her sister Alexis placed 114 stones into a jar so that a courtroom full of people would understand what 114 means. It means never going home. Tristyn Bailey was born on January 18th, 2008. She was a cheerleader. She was the youngest of 5. She was loved ferociously by a family who called themselves the Bailey 7, and who still do, because she is still one of them. She was 13 years old when she was taken from a neighbourhood that was supposed to be safe by someone she knew on the night before Mother's Day. Her father stood in that courtroom and told her, speaking to her directly as if she was still in the room, "There are no words. We love you, and we will continue to hold you in our hearts." And then he turned to the people around him, a community shattered by something it never saw coming, and he said this, "Our love is greater than the evil that can exist in the world. Cheer on, Tristyn. We haven't forgotten you." If this story changed something in you, if it made you think about the warnings you might overlook, the words you might dismiss, share this video, because awareness is the only thing that turns a warning into a prevention. I'm True Crime Reporter, and this is Peak Crime Stories. Subscribe for a new investigation every week. Drop your thoughts on this case in the comments, especially if you remember when this story broke. I read every single one.